All right, so apparently I've been chanting with no sound. I imagine that we have sound now. So, thank you for the tip. I'm going to pause. Sorry about those 5 minutes of me doing nothing. I'm not going to start all over, however. I have davened parts of the service, and we are now going to go with, I am on page 88, bottom of the Psalm for Shabbat. Tzadik atamar yifrach, keres balvanon yizkeh, shetulim beveit Adonai bechatrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenun besema. Deshenim verananim yehiyu lehagid Yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. Page 89, Psalm 27. V'laviranari v'shimi mi'iram. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai lachazot benoam Adonai ulvaker beichalo. Lachazot benoam Adonai ulvaker beichalo. Bottom of 90. Lehem hati lerot bituv Adonai beretz chayim kavel Adonai chazak ematzlipecha vekavel el Adonai. Page 95. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. Leman yisamecha chavav l'idom Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka. Please rise if you want to at home, or not. Baruch Shemar. Baruch Shemar v'hayaolam Baruch Hu. Baruch Oseh Bereshit. Baruch Omer ve'oseh. Baruch Gozer Mekayem. Baruch Merachem al haaretz. Baruch Merachem al habriot. Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov l'reah. Bracha l'afkem l'netzach. Baruch Matzil, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Atan El Mechalam, Hailam Rachamam. Yachid Kelamim, Melech Meshubach Ve'edat Shema Gadol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Mehulal Batishbachot. 134. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 el bekocho, hallelujah, berkia uzo, hallelujah, bigdurotav, hallelujah, kerov gulo, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, benever vechinor, hallelujah, betof umacho, hallelujah, bemenim veugav, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 b'tziltzalei shema, hallelujah, b'tziltzalei truah, kol anshamate, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 143. נשמת כל חי תברך את שמך. תברך את שמך. Page 147. מי ידמה לך, ומי ישווה לך, ומי יערוך לך? האל הגדול הגיבור האל עליון קונה שמיים וארץ. נעלה לך, נשבחך לפארך לברך את שם קודשך כאמור. לדוד ברכי נפשי את אדוני, וכל קרבה את שם קודשו. היה בתעצומות עוזך הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך. המלך היושב על כיסא Ram Venisan. My son Jonah Bloom will be leading us in Shacharit. As usual, without the presence of physical minion, we'll be skipping the Baruch Hu, the Chatzikash, reciting the words El Melech Naaman before Shema. So page 149.
Shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv ranu tzadikim ba'adonai le'sharim nava tehila v'fi sharim tithalal v'divrei tzadikim titbarach v'v'shon chasidim titromam v'v'keref kedoshim titkadash v'machalot ribevot amcha beit Yisrael Rinayit Pashim Chamalkenu Bechol Dor V'Ador Shekein Chovat Kol HaYetzarim Lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu Lehodot Lehalel L'Shabeach Lefaer L'Romem Lehader Levarech Le'aleh Ukales Al Kol Divrei Shiro V'Tishbachot David Ben Yishai Avdecha Meshichecha Yishtabach Shimcha Le'ad Malkenu Brachot ve'odaot me'ata ve'ad olam Baruch atah Adonai El Melech Gadol B'tishbachot El ha'odaot Adon ha'niflaot Ha'bocher b'shirei zimra Melech elchei ha'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam Yotzer or u'vorei choshech Oseh shalom u'vorei et hakol Hakol yotilcha ve'akol yishalchucha אין קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין קרקך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכין לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גואלנו למות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. El Adon al kol ha'masim baruch u'mvorach v'fi kol neshama godlo v'tuvo malei olam da'ad u'tvuna sovo v'imoto hamitga'eh al chayot ha'kodesh v'nedar b'chavod al ha'merkava zechut u'mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chevodo Tobi me'ora shebara Eloheinu Tzaram b'da'at b'vina u'chaskel Koach u'gvura Natan bahem li'ot moshlim b'kerev tevel Maleim ziv umfikim noga Na'e ziv ha'mechol ha'olam Zmeichim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'voam Osim be'ema retzon konam Pe'er v'chavod nonim lishmo Tohola berina lezecher malchuto Kara l'shemesh v'yizrach ora V'hikin surat halvana Shevach nonim lo kol tzeva maram Tiferet ugedula serafim ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh.
Page 157.
לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו יוצר משרתים. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם ומלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצמם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ונימה, קדושה כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה. קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים בחיות הקודש בראש גדול מנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, לאל ברוך ממולדתנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ותורה חמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו למדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול. צלה באמת להודות לך, ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. מלך נאמן. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, Ukshartam leot al yadecha, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וחיסון החיים מלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת, ודבריו חיים וקיימים. אמת שתהו אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם. אמן אתה הוא ראשון ואתה הוא אחרון, ומבלעדיך אין לנו מלך, גואל ומושיע. תהילו לאל עליון, ברוך ומבורך, משה בני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליי. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו וימלכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו בך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Private Amidah, pages 175 through 192.
Say shalom bimramav, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Say shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, say shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen.
Our Yasher Koach, we have the Torah service now. One quick thing before, unfortunately, cannot find the Haftarah book, so I'll be reading that out of the Chumash. And we will be on page, for the abbreviated Torah service, on page 196. Actually, Joni, you want to go get the Torah too and bring it down? This is the middle one. Or would you rather read the Torah service? Either way. Get the Torah. Vahivin Tzoharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, Ve'afutsu Oivecha, Ve'anusu Misanecha, Mipanecha, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael, B'kedushato Gadol Adonai iti, Unerama Shemo Yaakov Lecha Adonai, Hagedula, V'hagivura, V'hatiferet, V'hanetzach, V'hahod, Ki chov hashamayim u'va'aretz, Ki chov hashamayim u'va'aretz, Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, Ve'hamitnaseh lechol erosh romamu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'hishtakavu, Lehadam raglav kadoshu, romamu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'hishtakavu, Lehar kodsho, Ki kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. All right, we can be seated as the Torah is out. I'm going to be reading from Kitavo, which means when you come. When you come into the land, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to give your first fruits to God. Expression of gratitude. You're also going to hear the wandering Aramaic passage. My father, Avi, Oved Arami. My father was a wandering Aramaic. If you wish to follow it in the Chumash, we're talking about Deuteronomy chapter 26. You can follow that in any Bible. Chumash Eitz Chaim 1140, 1140. V'haya ki tavo al haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachalav rishta v'yashavta ba v'lachkakta mereshit al pnei adama asher tevi me'artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach v'samta v'tene v'halachta el hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shaken shemo sham. Uvata el kohen asher yeh bayamim hahem ve'marta elav higadati hayom l'Adonai Elohecha kivati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai lavotenu latet lanu. V'lakach hakohen hatene me'adecha ve'hiniti lifnei mizbeach Adonai Elohecha ועיניתי ואמרה לפני אדוני אלוהיך, ארמי עובד אבי וירד מצרימה, ויגד שם במותי מעט ויהי שם לגוי גדול. Had to practice those last two verses, but I wanted to get the part about the wandering Aramaean in there. Blessing of those who are sick. Thinking especially today of Scott Lawrence, Shoshana bat Shulamit Leah, Dahlia bat Razel, Chazan Shlomo Natan ben Nechama, Kenner Richard Kaplan, now in rehab in San Francisco, Sima Sarah bat Mariam Chana, Barbara Rose, Esther bat Haika, Tzvi ben Fegela, Linda Doan, Chana bat Cyril, Moshe ben Shlomo HaKohen Babela, Simcha Simento, Lou Burl, Dvorah bat Avraham Basara, Abby Faber, Chana Rivka bat Tova Leah, Ilya Oak, Yechiel ben Eliza, Reuven ben Chana, Arlene Miller, Pastor Karen Stepko, Karina Gola bat Hadav Yehuda Tzvi, Leah Yehudit bat Shena, Todd Schulman, Ken Cohen, Inbar bat Moshe, Leonard Katz, Jerry Weinberg, Susan Weinberg, Mike Weinberg Lynn, Yoshua ben Malka Tova, David Perez. Any other names you wish to add to our prayers for those who are ill today, please say them out loud at this time. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu Mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. All right, a little bit of Haftorah today as well. The Haftorah comes, as all these Haftorah do during the season, comes from Isaiah. This is the 6th Haftorah of consolation, following Tisha B'Av. Isaiah chapter 60, page 1161. The beginning is in the song L'Chadodi on Friday night. I'm going to be reading the beginning as well as the end. Wait a second, adjust this for a quick second. Kumi ori kiva orech, uvod Adonai aleich zerach. Ki hine hachoshech yechaseh eretz, va'arafel le'umim, va'alayich yizrach Adonai, ukvodo aleich yera'eh. V'hachu goyim le'orech, umlachim, that means arise, shine, for your light has dawned. The presence of God has shone upon you. Now it's turning to the end, verse 19 in chapter 60. Lo yihye lach or hashemesh leor yomam unoga hayarech lo yeir lach Vayalach Adonai leor olam ve'elochayich letifartech lo yavo od shimshech virechech lo ye'asef ki Adonai yelach leor olam ושלמו ימי אבלך, ועמך כולם צדיקים לעולם, ישועי הארץ, נצר מתי, מעשה ידי להתפאר, הקטון יהיה לאלף, והצער לגוי עצום, אני אדוני ביתה אחי שינה. Love those images of light in Isaiah. All right, before the Torah is put away today, we're going to do a couple extra prayers. I'm going to call upon Karen to do those. She's going to read the prayer for Israel in English, and then lead us in Ashrei.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Our Av that is in heaven, Rock of Israel and its Redeemer, bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of our redemption. Shield her with the wings of your loving kindness. Spread over her the shelter of your peace. Send your light and your truth to her heads of state, her ministers and her advisors. Restore them with good counsel before you. Strengthen the hands of those who defend your holy land. Bequeath to them, our God, salvation. Adorn them with a crown of triumph, and grant peace in the land and eternal joy to its inhabitants. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Ashrei is on 231. Ashrei Ashrei Veitecha, O Yehalelucha Selah. Tehillah LeDavid, Aromimcha Elohai HaMelech, V'avarcha Shemcha Leolam Va'ed. Gadol Adonai Umhalal Meod, V'li Gdulato Ein Cheker. Hadar Kevod Hodecha, V'divrei Neflotecha Asicha. Zecher Rav Tuvcha Yaviru, V'tzid Kadecha Yiranenu. Tov Adonai Lakol, Rachamav Kol Masav. Kevod Malchutecha Yomeru, Uveratecha Yidaberu. Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim, Umemshaltecha B'chol Dor V'ador. Einei Kol Elecha Yisaberu, Ve'atem noten lachem et ochlam be'ito. Tzadik Adonai b'chol derachav, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav. Ritzon yireyav ya'aseh, ve'et shavatam yishma v'yoshiyem. Tehillat Adonai yidaber pi, Yivarech kol basar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed. V'anachnu nevarech Yah me'atav yad olam. Hallelujah.
Yashkoach.
Thank you, Susan Simon, for teaching me Ashrei.
All right, we rise now for the return of the Sefer Torah to the Ark. Ki lekatov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu et ha'ihi lemachazikim ba v'tom he'amerushar teracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom Hashiveinu Adonai Elecha b'nam shuva Kadesh Yameinu kekedem. Amen. little fun with the blooms here, with doing everything. Today, including opening the ark, I used to opening that by myself. Right, sermon time. Band Green Day wrote, "Wake me up when September ends." September is a very strange month in our household and in the Western Jewish world as well. Right, in the Western Jewish world, it's the New Year, it's Rosh Hashanah, but it's also the autumn season, which is a season of slow death, of leaves falling and the like. In our house, it means a lot of stress because school is starting, which means my wife Karen, the teacher, is stressed. It means the high holidays are coming up, which means myself, the rabbi, is stressed. On the other hand, it's my birthday, it's Jonah's birthday, it's my father's birthday, it's also my father's yortzeit. And in fact, today is my father's yortzeit. So September is a strange month. Wake me up when September ends, although there is no rest for the weary because it is the busiest month of my year as well. So, given that it's my father's yortzeit, I've been thinking a lot about him lately, and I know that's quite common, even though it was 2 years ago that he died, to this day in the Hebrew calendar, not in the Gregorian calendar. It's not that I don't think of him during the rest of the year, but as the yortzeit approaches, I think of him more. And I think that's the case with most people who have lost a parent or another loved one. And so you start to see him in everything you do, including the Torah portion, which has a very famous line about a father. My father was a wandering Aramaean. Arami Oved Avi. Now, before I get into a little bit about my own father, what does that line mean? You probably know that line fairly well. Right? Because it's in the Haggadah. It's in fact the beginning of the part called the Magid, the telling. That's actually what the Haggadah means, the telling. And it's the very beginning. You start the story, not the beginning of the Seder, but the beginning of the Magid part of the story, by saying my father was a wandering Aramaean. And most people kind of associate that with, okay, we were wandering Jews. But what it actually means in the context of the Haggadah is that we wandered for a while, we were sort of lost, and eventually we got redeemed by God, freed from slavery in Egypt, redeemed with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. And the whole idea of the Seder is we move from degradation to exaltation, from really the depths of darkness to the beauty of the light with the freedom. And that's how that story goes. But who is the wandering Aramaean anyway? Because it's actually in this Torah portion. It's actually not clear. And Rashi, who is the most famous commentator, thinks it's somebody who I don't think it is at all. The rest of the commentators, for the most part, disagree with him. But he actually thinks the wandering Aramaean refers to Laban. And that's because he translates the word wandering not as wandering, but as destroyed. Arami Oved Avi, which means an Aramaean tried to destroy my father, rather than my father was a wandering Aramaean. Now, you might know that word if you know it at all. Oved, you might think it means work, but that's the one that's spelled with an ayin. This is one that's spelled with an aleph. So it either means wandered or destroyed. So Rashi believes it's Lavan, who tried to destroy Jacob's life, and therefore his son-in-law, and so it's really a reference to him. However, I disagree with that approach, and so do most of the other commentators. Ramban and Ibn Ezra agree that it's Jacob, and it's not that an Aramaean tried to destroy my father, it's that Jacob was the wandering Aramaean, because the next line, he's sojourning down in Egypt, and that's in fact what Jacob did. He went down during the famine, joined Joseph with all his other sons, and that's how we got there, which makes sense in the context of the Haggadah and of the entire Exodus story. And eventually, we were freed from that slavery. So, in their view, it refers to Jacob. But Rashbam, who is Rashi's grandson, has the view that I share, which is that it really refers to Abraham, Avraham, who came from that area, was a wanderer. He wandered from Aram or from Ur of the Chaldees, and he eventually ended up in Canaan, Israel. And it's not only that he wandered and he was lost in that land and found himself in our land, but that he was lost without Hashem. He was lost without God. And so eventually, when he felt God's presence and became, well, I don't know if ally is the right word, but, a servant, really, of God, rather than a servant of an Egyptian pharaoh or something, that's when he started as a wandering Aramean, but became the quintessential Jew, the first Jew. So I actually think it refers to Abraham. So I wanted to give you a little bit about the sort of academic, textual Judaic background. But now I want to speak for a few moments about my own father, who was the opposite of a wanderer. My father, if anything, was a rock. And there's a rock garden here at Temple Beth Abraham dedicated in his honor by his brother, my Uncle Ron. And he was really a rock of stability. And I think about the many things that he taught me and taught others. Many of them are also present in this Torah portion. Right, the Torah portion starts with presenting first fruits to God. Gratitude. My father was all about gratitude, about appreciating what he had, enjoying money if he had it, to be spent on family, to be spent generously, to be spent on great food and beautiful hotel rooms, and to constantly just acknowledge that we should be grateful for everything we have. And we have a lot. So that was his first lesson. It was the lesson of the first fruits, the gratitude. The second lesson, I guess, comes from the my father was a wandering Aramean, right? That's an expression, if among all the other things I mentioned, of family and the importance of family. Family was everything to him. All his generosity was dedicated mostly to our family. He was huge into family trees. I've got this 20-page chart that I'm referencing all the time of various families, of various branches of my family. There's the Bloom branch, and then from his mother's side, there's the Fox, Fuchsman, and what is really the Kushner branch. And if you're thinking, well, then we're probably related to Jared Kushner and the like, that's not true because they actually adopted the Kushner name later. So anyway, we're not related to them as far as we know. And so we had the Kushner name back at least as far as the 1700s, where we can trace our family tree to back in Ukraine. So family was important. Lesson number 3, he was a teacher. He loved to teach. He was always teaching. I mean, sometimes annoyingly so. And there's a passage that we didn't read, but that is still part of the first triennial, which talks about how we're to erect, when we get into this land, these gigantic stone pillars on which will be written the Torah. Now, whether that's the entire Torah or the 613 commandments listed or some summary thereof, it's uncertain. But the teaching's supposed to be right in front of you. And that reminds me of my dad's favorite lesson, which he gave to us when we were little. He would have us build with blocks, and we'd start building these towers, and they would fall apart immediately. And then he would say, you have to build a strong foundation first. So you have to put more blocks in the bottom and then gradually build up. Now, we're not engineers in our family, but still, he taught us the lesson of a strong foundation, and that was supposed to be related to our education. And the pillars reminded me of that and reminded me of him as well. And then finally, the part that is probably the most Herb Bloom, the most my dad, would be in the part of the parsha that we read next year, which is called the Tochacha. It's a list of curses and a couple of blessings. Curse, 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 and a couple of blessings. And this was honestly the opposite of my father. It just reminds me of him because he was all about optimism. He was all about you can if you think you can. That was a big poster that we had in our kitchen, which my sister found this week actually in her house in a storage box. You can if you think you can. He really believed it. Part of that was from his own experience. Right? He never talked about it. He's dead now. I can talk about it. He so wanted to be a lawyer. He was an excellent lawyer, but he had to take the bar something like 6 times because he didn't test well. He was going to law school part-time, And so I think he took it about 6 times. He eventually passed it. He eventually became a great lawyer. Because in his view, you can if you think you can. You can do anything. He really believed it, and he lived it. So today, I'm thinking of Avraham, Arami Avi, Avraham, the wandering Aramean. I'm thinking of my dad, Herschel ben Mordecai, Herb. And both of them are giving us the strength to get through incredibly difficult times. I'm thankful that he didn't have to live through this pandemic. Although he was a germaphobe, he would have said, "See, I told you." Right? Reminds me. Although there's nobody here but us today, so still, in your honor, Dad. And I know, and you know, that you made an impact on so many people. Still, wake me up when September ends. This is the song by Green Day. Summer has come and passed, innocent can ever last. Wake me up when September ends. Like my father's come to pass, 2 whole years have gone so fast. Wake me up when September ends. Here comes the rain again, falling from the stars, drenched in my pain again, becoming who we are. As my memory rests, never forgets what I've lost. Wake me up when September ends. Summer has come and passed, the innocent can never last. Wake me up when September ends. Like my father's come to pass, 2 whole years have gone too fast. Wake me up when September ends. All right, our service will continue now with the Musaf Amidah, page 239. It's done only silently. Please rise. Yeah, if you see me looking off and smirking, smiling, we're making inside jokes here. I've got my, as you know, son and wife here, and we're having fun. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, v'rachamim, sim, sim. Sim shalom, sim, sim, sim shalom, sim, sim, sim shalom, tova uveracha. Right, you got your candy ready? It's Ein Kelohenu time. Ein Kelohenu. Get a sweet treat if you're a kid and you're watching. You deserve it. Page 261. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Kelohenu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkenu, Mi Kemoshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Atahu Shiktiru, Avotenu, Lifbanecha, et Ketoret Hasamim. Aleinu, page 263. Aleinu, Shabbat, Ladon, Hakol, Latekru, Aliotse, Breshit, Shelo, Asanu, Kugei, Haratzot, Velo, Samanu, Mishpachot, Adama, Shelo, Sam, Chelkenu, Kaem, Vegor, Aleinu, Kechol, Hamonam, Vanachnu, Korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומשה יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינת עוזו בגוהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו כך כתוב בתורתו ודעת היום והשב אותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל והארץ מתחת אין עוד אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. This time in our service we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose Yorkshites, the anniversary of their deaths, we observe during the coming week. And it's a very, very long list because fall, and as we approach Rosh Hashanah, it seems that people do die as if to try to live out the fullness of the year. And so there's a lot of names, besides my father, there's a lot of names I know very well on here. Thinking especially today of Rose Adolph, Louis Arnold, Irving Louis Berg, Louis Bernstein, Herbert Bloom, Minnie Brodowski, Catherine Calderon Cohen, Rosa Freemark, Maury Friedkin, Jean Gallant, Ethel Gluck, Judel Gold, Rabbi Meir Goldberg, Paula Gordon, Harry Hertz, Martin Hertz, Molly Hertz, Samuel Hillman, Gladys Hyman, Sam Kahane, Boris Katz, Zelda Klein, Ruth Klein, Lionel Barnett Kurtz, Joseph Landis, Mel Lazar, Eve Leves, Moshe Marcus, Michael Melvin, Mundala Litvak Oak, Harold Person, Henry Reingold, Nella Schlesinger, Mary Chipkin Shusheim, Abraham Shapiro, Sarah Scheidlauer, Joanna Stern, Hans George Venus, Lucy Volinsky, Samuel Waxman, Joseph Weiner, Lillian West, Leo Young, Louis Zucker. We're in the Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period, for Edward Berkovich, and we are not quite in Shiva yet for Charles Sims, the father of Elizabeth Sims. More information will follow regarding a Shiva memorial service in his honor over Zoom. The memories of all of them with us. We ask all those who are in mourning or observing Yortzeit, as well as anyone who wishes to join me in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 267. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yahei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam lo me'omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yittadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha barichu, la'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, adamiran be'alma v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Zichronam livracha. May the memory of those you are thinking of today be a blessing to you always, as when we once again say, Amen. Services tonight, Havdalah, streamed from my home for the last time for a long time. Summer's over. We do them privately now instead, but tonight, 8:30, musical selections following finale-type songs. Next Saturday morning, Steve Steiner will be here with me. He'll be reading Torah. And high holidays are coming up, and they're virtually all virtual, except for the live Torah service, which will be read by mostly our teenagers. They'll be doing that outside. Inside, it will mostly be myself, Chazanit, Yael, and there'll be a couple other readers, leaders hanging around also. And if you are watching from afar, you wish to join us for the high holidays, same place, different times, but same place. Just feel free to watch on Facebook and YouTube. They will be streamed live. Feel free to make a donation. Feel free to even join the congregation. We're having a special out-of-state membership. Information will be following on that as well. Okay, I think that's just about it. And we will conclude. Actually, here's where I'm going to conclude something different, since I already have the guitar out. By the way, when we get back to in-person, there will be no musical instruments on Saturday mornings, only Friday nights. But since I took one out for the sermon, and we had one last week for Joseph Blumberg's bar mitzvah, I'm going to take one out tonight too, or today too. I almost did this as the closing song last night, but I wanted to do my sister's favorite song, because she was there. But this is a song honoring our wedding couple, Matt and Lucia, getting married tomorrow. So mazel tov to them. Instead of a Don Olam, Od Yishama Be'arei Yehuda from the Sheva Brachot still can be heard in the streets of Jerusalem. Voices of joy and gladness, the voices of the bride and the voices of the groom. Od Yishama Be'arei Yehuda Uvechutzot Yerushalayim. I got the wrong key. I'm going to start that one over. Sorry. Od Yishama Be'arei Yehuda Uvechutzot Yerushalayim. Od Yishama Be'arei Yehuda Uvechutzot Yerushalayim. Kol sasan ve'kol simcha, kol chatan ve'kol kala, קטן וכל קלה. לי 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Shabbat Shalom.